"You'll always have a home here," my parents promised. It was a lie. A beautiful, comforting lie I'd been told my entire life. The promise was a cozy blanket, a warm cup of cocoa on a cold winter night. But it wasn't a deed. When Dad died, the house in Houston, Texas became mine, and the blanket became a bargaining chip. I stood in the living room, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the empty space where Dad's armchair used to be. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the lively chaos of my childhood. The weight of the house felt like a physical burden. It wasn't just wood and drywall. It was a testament to years of struggle, a monument to their love. But to me, it was a key to the future, a way to start over. It was also an escape from the past, a way to finally break free from the constraints of my family. My fiancé, Michael, saw it as a business opportunity, a way to leverage my inheritance for our future. "It's just a house, Sarah," he'd say. "It's not your entire life." My brother David saw it differently. He saw the house as a symbol of our family's legacy. He wanted to buy my share of the house, to keep it in the family. "It's Mom's home," he'd plead. "She can't leave. This is all she has." Mom, with her frail health, would sit in the corner of the room, her eyes filled with a plea I chose to ignore. "Don't worry, Mom," I'd tell her, my voice hollow. "Everything's going to be fine." The lie was on my tongue, but I was determined to make it a reality. I had to sell the house to secure my own future. I couldn't let my family hold me back any longer. The house was a trap, and I was going to escape it. I was going to sell it and start a new life with Michael. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right one. It was time for me to be selfish for once. Don't miss the next chapter of this gripping story. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our new videos. The first phone call from the real estate agent felt like the first nail in the coffin of my family's past. The agent, a woman with a voice as slick as her expensive suit, promised a quick sale. The market was hot, she said, and our house was a gem. She rattled off a list of potential buyers, their offers and their stories. I listened with a detached fascination, like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. This wasn't my life. This was my business transaction. David found out about my plans from a friend who saw the for sale sign in the front yard. His voice on the phone was a storm of fury and betrayal. "How could you, Sarah? How could you do this to Mom?" he shouted, his words a barrage of accusations. "You're kicking her out of her own home." My stomach was a knot of guilt, but I pushed it down, replacing it with a cold, hard resolve. "This is my decision, David," I said, my voice as steady as I could make it. "It's my house. It's my future." Mom's reaction was a quiet, devastating sorrow. She didn't shout or cry. She just sat in her chair, her gaze fixed on the window, her hands clasped in her lap. Her silence was louder than any of David's shouts. "Mom, please," I'd say, trying to explain myself. "We can find you a nice apartment, somewhere safe, somewhere new." But she just shook her head, her eyes still fixed on the empty street outside. My rationalizations were a flimsy shield against my growing unease. Michael was my biggest cheerleader, my biggest justification. "It's just a house, Sarah," he'd repeat, his words a comforting mantra. "Think of all the things we can do with that money." And I would think of them, a down payment on a new life, a new beginning, free from the weight of my family's expectations. I would think of them and push the guilt down, bury it deep under the promise of a better future. It was a future I had to fight for, even if it meant sacrificing the past. The open house was a surreal parade of strangers. They walked through the rooms, their footsteps echoing in the empty spaces, their whispers a constant low hum. They commented on the high ceilings, the hardwood floors, the garden that Dad had spent years cultivating. I saw them not as potential buyers, but as vultures, circling and picking at the carcass of my family's memories. I hated them, and I hated myself for letting them in. David showed up, his face a mask of cold fury. He stood in the corner of the living room, his arms crossed, his presence a dark cloud in the bright, sunny room. He didn't speak to me, but his eyes followed my every move, a silent accusation. He was a constant reminder of what I was doing, a living testament to my betrayal. He would whisper to Mom, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm going to do everything I can to stop her." Mom, frail and pale, sat on a bench in the garden, her gaze lost in the vibrant colors of the roses, her hands clutching a small photo album. She was a ghost in her own home, a silent witness to its slow and painful dissection. My heart ached for her, but my resolve hardened. I had a life to build. I couldn't be burdened by the past. Michael, ever the pragmatist, was in his element. He was charming and persuasive, talking to the potential buyers, painting a picture of a vibrant new life in this historic house. The house, once a symbol of stability, was now a commodity, a piece of property to be haggled over. Every offer was another step away from the past, another step closer to my new life. It was a dizzying, exhilarating feeling. I was finally in control. I was finally free. But as I watched Mom's fragile figure in the garden, a nagging voice in my head whispered, "At what cost?" I silenced it with the thought of the money, the future, the freedom. But the whisper remained, a subtle but persistent reminder of the price I was paying. The day the buyer's offer was accepted, a wave of relief washed over me. It was done. The house was sold. The future was mine to command. Michael and I celebrated with a fancy dinner, our glasses clinking in a toast to our new beginning. "We did it, Sarah," he said, his smile as bright as the city lights outside. "We're free." His words echoed in my ears, a beautiful melody of success. But something was missing. The victory felt hollow, a fragile shell. Breaking the news to David was a final act of cruelty. He was in his car. His voice on the phone was a low growl. "You're a monster, Sarah," he said. And then the line went dead. His words were a physical blow, a punch to the gut. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by empty boxes, a strange quiet filling the air. This was it. The end of an era. The end of my family as I knew it. Mom's reaction was a devastating silence. She simply packed a small bag, her hands trembling. She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed on the floor. The car ride to David's apartment was filled with a suffocating quiet. I tried to talk, to explain, to justify my actions, but my words fell flat. Her silence was a wall, a fortress I couldn't penetrate. When we arrived at David's, he opened the door, his face grim. He took Mom's bag and led her inside, never once looking at me. The door closed, and I was left standing on the sidewalk, alone, in the cold, biting wind. I had achieved my freedom, but I had lost my family. The cold wind felt like a physical representation of my isolation. The house, once a symbol of warmth and security, was now an empty shell, a monument to my selfish choices. The new life I had envisioned felt like a cruel joke. The weight of my actions, once pushed down, now rose to the surface, a heavy, suffocating blanket of regret. The promise was broken. The home was gone. The family was shattered. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the dramatic twists in the next chapters of this story. Life with Michael in our new luxury apartment was supposed to be a dream, a testament to my successful plan. We had a stunning view of the city skyline, a sleek, modern kitchen, and an endless stream of expensive takeout. The initial excitement was intoxicating. We spent our days planning our lives, decorating our new space, and reveling in our newfound freedom. But the thrill of the new soon faded, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. The apartment, with its clean lines and minimalist design, felt cold and sterile. It was a beautiful prison, devoid of the warmth and memories that had filled the house. The silence was the worst part. There were no more late-night talks with Mom on the porch. No more arguments with David over the remote control. No more echoes of laughter from a time long past. The silence was a constant reminder of the lives I had displaced, the people I had left behind. Michael, absorbed in his own ambitions, seemed oblivious to my growing unease. He was living his dream, and I was just an accessory to it. Our conversations were no longer about us, but about him, his work, his future plans. I started to call David, but he never answered. I left countless voicemails, my voice growing more desperate with each one. "I miss you," I'd say. "I'm sorry. Please just call me back." The calls were never returned. My loneliness felt like a physical weight, a heavy coat I couldn't take off. I tried to visit Mom, but David wouldn't let me in. "You've done enough," he'd say through the closed door. The city lights, once a symbol of my new life, now felt like a taunt. I was in the middle of it all, yet I was more alone than ever. The home I had sacrificed for this new life was gone, and the new life I had created was a hollow imitation. The silence was deafening, a constant reminder of the price I had paid for my freedom. It was a price I was now realizing I couldn't afford. The cold reality was a bitter pill to swallow. The first signs of trouble with Michael came subtly, like a change in the weather. He was always working, his phone a constant extension of his hand. He was more distant, less patient. He started coming home late, his explanations vague and evasive. The arguments began as whispers, then grew into shouting matches. The apartment, once our sanctuary, became a battlefield. "You're never here," I'd accuse. "I'm trying to build a life for us," he'd retort, his voice filled with frustration. One evening, I found a receipt for a lavish dinner at a restaurant he'd never taken me to. My heart sank. The truth was a bitter, stinging slap in the face. I confronted him, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. He didn't deny it. "I don't love you anymore, Sarah," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "I've met someone else." My world, which was already fragile, shattered into a million pieces. I was alone. My home was gone. My family was gone. And now my partner was gone. The walls of the luxurious apartment felt like they were closing in on me. The city lights outside seemed to mock my solitude. I had sold my family's legacy for a man who didn't love me, for a life that was a lie. The regret was a tangible thing, a suffocating force that choked me. I tried to call David again, my hands shaking as I dialed his number. The phone rang and rang, but he never picked up. I sat in the middle of the empty living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life I had so desperately wanted. The silence was a ghost, a reminder of everything I had lost. I had traded the warmth of my family for the cold reality of a life I had foolishly believed in. The loneliness was a sharp physical pain, and I realized with a sickening certainty that I had only myself to blame. I was lost, adrift in a sea of my own making, with no one to throw me a lifeline. The days that followed were a blur of self-pity and despair. I moved out of the apartment, a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of regrets. The city, once my oyster, now felt like a hostile desert. I found a cheap, tiny apartment in a rundown part of town, the kind of place I swore I'd never live in. The walls were thin, the neighbors loud, and the constant smell of stale cigarettes was a constant reminder of my new reality. The life I had envisioned, the one I had so selfishly fought for, was a cruel joke. I started working at a diner, the greasy smell of fried food and the endless stream of demanding customers my new reality. My hands, once accustomed to the soft touch of my father's old books, were now perpetually stained with grease and dish soap. The world was a cold, hard place, and I was finally experiencing it without the soft cushion of my family's love. My dreams of a successful, glamorous life had evaporated, leaving behind a bitter, painful reality. I tried to reach out to David and Mom again, this time with a sincere, heartfelt apology. I left a message on David's voicemail, my voice thick with tears. "I was wrong," I choked out. "I'm so sorry. I miss you. I miss you both so much." The silence that followed was a constant, haunting echo. I would sit for hours, waiting for a call that never came. The loneliness was a physical ache, a constant companion that reminded me of my mistakes. I was on my own, completely isolated. I had thrown away the one thing that had always been there for me, my family. The house, once a source of my resentment, now felt like a beacon of warmth and security, a place I had so carelessly abandoned. I had nothing. No home, no family, no love. The life I had so eagerly sought was now a painful reality, a testament to the consequences of my selfishness. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. I was truly and completely alone. Will Sarah be able to fix her life and reconcile with her family? Subscribe now to find out what happens next in this emotional journey. The monotony of my new life was broken one rainy afternoon when I saw an old, familiar car parked outside the diner. It was David's. My heart hammered in my chest, a mix of hope and fear. I walked outside, my hands trembling. He was sitting in the driver's seat, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. "David," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He looked up, his expression a mix of anger and pain. He didn't say anything, just stared at me. "I'm so sorry," I said, the words a raw, emotional confession. I was selfish. I was wrong. Tears streamed down my face, a flood of pent-up guilt and regret. He didn't respond, just reached into the back seat and handed me a shoebox. "These are some of your old things," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "Mom wanted you to have them." The shoebox was filled with old photos, small trinkets, a dried rose from my prom corsage. It was a collection of my past, a past I had so carelessly discarded. "How is she?" I asked, my voice choked with emotion. He shrugged, his eyes distant. "She's okay. She's with me. She's safe." He started the car, the engine a low growl. "I have to go." My heart ached. This wasn't the reunion I had hoped for. There was no forgiveness, no embrace, no promise of a new start. He was still a wall, a fortress I couldn't break down. I stood there in the pouring rain, clutching the shoebox to my chest, the cold rain a stark contrast to the warmth of the memories inside. The past, which I had tried to escape, was now my only comfort. The old photos, the trinkets, the dried rose, they were all that was left of the home I had so foolishly abandoned. My family was a ghost, a memory, a part of my past that I couldn't get back. The rain felt like a baptism of regret, a cleansing of the sins I had committed. I had made my bed, and now I had to lie in it. The box of memories became my most prized possession. I would spend hours poring over the old photos, each one a painful reminder of a life I had lost. I saw pictures of Mom and Dad, their smiles wide and genuine. I saw pictures of David and me as kids, our faces smeared with cake, our laughter echoing in the past. The house was a constant backdrop, a silent witness to a time when we were a family, a unit, a source of unwavering love and support. The more I looked at them, the more my heart ached with a deep, profound regret. I tried calling David again, but he didn't answer. I left a message, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm looking at the pictures," I said, my voice trembling. "I miss you. I miss Mom. I miss the house. I'm so sorry. I hope one day you can forgive me." I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. I had to let him know how much I regretted my actions, how much I longed to go back. My life was a constant cycle of work, loneliness, and regret. I had no friends, no family, no home. I had nothing but a shoebox full of memories and a heavy heart. The woman I had been, the woman who had so confidently sold her family's home, was gone. In her place was a broken, remorseful shell of a person, a living testament to the consequences of a life built on selfishness and betrayal. One day, I was walking home from work when I saw the old house. The new owners had painted it a different color, and the garden had been meticulously re-landscaped. It was beautiful, but it wasn't the same. It was no longer my home. It was just a house. A painful lump formed in my throat as I walked past it, a silent tear rolling down my cheek. The house was a symbol of my failure, a monument to the life I had destroyed. The promise of a home, once a beautiful lie, was now a painful truth. I had a home once. I just didn't realize it until it was gone. Months turned into a year, and my life remained a monotonous cycle of work and loneliness. I was a ghost in my own life, a shadow of the person I used to be. The pain of my past mistakes was a constant, a dull ache that never faded. One cold winter evening, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I answered, my voice a tired whisper. It was David. My heart leaped into my throat. "Sarah," he said, his voice hesitant. "Mom, she's in the hospital. Her health is getting worse." My world stopped. The long-suppressed fear and love for my mother surged through me. "I'm on my way," I said, without a second thought. The taxi ride to the hospital was a blur of frantic thoughts and prayers. I walked into the hospital room, and my eyes immediately fell on her. She was frail, her skin pale, but her eyes held a spark I hadn't seen in a long time. David was by her side, his hand holding hers. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and a hesitant forgiveness. I knelt beside her bed, tears streaming down my face. "Mom," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." She squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "It's okay, my dear," she said, her voice weak but full of love. "You're here. That's all that matters." The simple words were a balm to my broken heart, a forgiveness I hadn't dared to hope for. David and I shared a silent, tearful moment. There was no need for words. The years of resentment and pain were still there, but in the face of our mother's fragile life, they seemed to dissolve. He wasn't a wall anymore. He was a brother, a fellow survivor of the life I had torn apart. We sat there, side by side, our hands clasped over Mom's, a silent promise to be a family again, even if it was just for a little while. The hospital room, with its sterile walls and a scent of antiseptic, was filled with a warmth I hadn't felt in a long, long time. I had lost my home, but in the midst of my suffering, I was finally on the path to finding my family again. The price of my mistakes was a painful one, but the lesson I had learned was invaluable. The greatest wealth isn't in a house, but in the love of your family. And a home isn't a place. It's the people you share it with. We hope this story resonated with you. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Your support means the world to us.